to change my last name so bad when I get married that, like, if I married a dude whose last name was already Jackson, I would still hyphenate. I'd be like, no, Jackson is not a typo.
When African Americans were freed before the 13th Amendment, there was a legal proceeding prescribed where the owner and 2 to 5 male citizens of the colony or state went before a judge and swore that the slave was an upstanding person and would not be a burden on the community if freed. At the hearing, the freed slave was given an opportunity to name himself. After the American Civil War, former slaves went to the Freemen's Bureau, operated by government officials from the victorious North, and had paperwork filled out designating their chosen new full name. Like the serfs of Europe, some chose the occupation they identified with, such as baker or tailor. Others indicated who their father was, such as the son of John became Johnson. Some chose a color, such as black or brown. Some choose historical figures, such as Washington or Lincoln. Some wanted to proclaim their new status, such as Freeman. And yes, out of respect, some chose their former master's last names, as we'll be looking at in today's video. Disclaimer: U.S. Census Bureau typically releases detailed surname data several years after each decennial census, so the latest data may not be available yet. The data shared in this video is according to the 2010 U.S. Census. Use as reference only.
Oh, Afro.
William or Williams. According to the 2010 U.S. Census data, Williams is the third most common surname in the United States overall, with approximately 1,625,252 people bearing this surname. Of this total, about 774,920 individuals identified as Black or African American. This makes William the most common surname among African Americans, surpassing even popular names like Johnson and Smith. The U.S. Census Bureau data shows that Texas, Georgia, and California have the highest numbers of people with the Williams surname. However, New York and Florida also have significant populations of William families.
Oh, Lord, Rod Williams, TSA.
Same old Williams. Yeah.
So what does William mean? Well, the name William comes from the Germanic elements will, meaning will or desire, and helm, meaning helmet or protection. Thus, Williams can be interpreted as son of William, or by extension, son of the resolute protector. Surprisingly, the Williams surname does appear in various African countries too, particularly in Ghana, Nigeria, and Liberia, due to slavery and return, colonial influence, and Christian missionary activities. Johnson. Johnson is one of the most common surnames in the United States overall, not just among African Americans. According to the 2010 U.S. Census data, there are approximately 1,932 people with the Johnson surname in the U.S., of which about 669,333, 34.63%, identify as Black or African American. While Texas has a higher concentration of Johnson families, other states like Texas, Georgia, and Florida have significant populations of Johnson families as well, not forgetting New York. The name Johnson is indeed derived from the Hebrew name Yohanan, meaning Yahweh is gracious. This is where it gets interesting. The Johnson surname among African Americans is not due to a direct connection with English or Scottish heritage. Instead, it's likely a result of the complex history of surname adoption during and after slavery in the United States. Many freed slaves chose or were given surnames that were common in the general population, which included names of English and Scottish origin. Now, how about the name Will Smith?
It sounded like you said they want me to spend 8 years in this shit.
Well, just forget about the Will for now, and let's focus on just the surname Smith. According to the 2010 U.S. Census data, there are approximately 564,572 African Americans bearing the Smith surname, making up about 23.11% of all Smiths in the United States. This places Smith as the third most common surname among African Americans, following Williams and Johnson. When we look at the geographic distribution of African American Smiths, we find some interesting patterns. Texas leads the pack with an estimated 48,553 African American Smiths, followed closely by Georgia with 42,342 and California with 34,438. But where did the name Smith come from, and how did it become so prevalent among African Americans? Well, the Smith surname has a rich history that predates its adoption by African Americans. It's of English origin and is considered one of the oldest and most common surnames in the English-speaking world. The name is derived from the Old English word smith, which means to smite or to strike. This occupational surname originally referred to a metal worker or craftsman, typically a blacksmith, who would shape metal into tools, weapons, and other items. The prevalence of the Smith surname among African Americans can be attributed to various historical factors, most notably the complex process of surname adoption during and after slavery in the United States. Many freed slaves chose or were given surnames that were common in the general population, which included names of English origin like Smith. Jones. The Jones surname holds a prominent place in African American communities.
I'm glad you found it. There are books that can make a difference in a life.
You're terrific. Your husband appreciates you.
My husband?
According to the 2010 U.S. Census, there are approximately 548,521 African Americans with the surname Jones, making it the fourth most common surname among African Americans, following Williams, Johnson, and Smith. Research indicates Jones is generally most common in states with large African American populations, such as New York, California, and Georgia. The etymology of Jones is of Welsh and English origin, derived from the personal name John. The name John comes from the Hebrew name Yohanan, meaning Yahweh is gracious. Thus, Jones can be understood as son of John, or, by extension, son of the gracious one. Interestingly, while Jones is the fifth most common surname in the United States overall, it ranks fourth among African Americans. If you're finding value in this video, hit that like button and subscribe while you're at it. Now let's talk about another surname among African Americans that gets people asking questions. You know the name I'm talking about? White.
Best player I've ever played with or against, by far, Reggie White.
There are approximately 193,144 African Americans with the surname White, representing about 28.17% of all people with this surname in the United States. The name has English and Scottish roots and is one of the oldest surnames in the English-speaking world. Originally, it referred to someone with a fair complexion or light-colored hair, derived from the Old English word whit, meaning white. Regarding the geographic distribution of African Americans with the White surname, this name is often found in Georgia, Texas, and North Carolina. Now, if you're wondering why a black individual would adopt the name White, this is likely due to historical factors related to slavery and the adoption of surnames by freed slaves after emancipation. Many former slaves chose or were given surnames common among white Americans, including names like White, Smith, Johnson, and Williams. So, despite its literal meaning, the White surname is not exclusive to any particular race or ethnicity. Jackson ranks as the sixth most common surname among African Americans. The Jackson surname has a rich history in African American culture, with many notable figures bearing this name, including civil rights activists, musicians, athletes, and political leaders. This widespread adoption has made Jackson one of the most recognizable and common surnames in the African American community. Georgia, Texas, and New York have the largest African American populations bearing this surname.
I want to change my last name so bad when I get married that, like, if I married a dude whose last name was already Jackson, I would still hyphenate. I'd be like, no, Jackson is not a typo.
The Jackson surname is of English origin and is derived from the personal name Jack, a diminutive of John. The name John comes from the Hebrew name Yochanan, meaning Yahweh, God, is gracious. Thus, Jackson can be interpreted as son of Jack, or, by extension, son of the one whom God is gracious to. Freeman. The surname Freeman has its roots in English history, originating as an occupational surname meaning free man or free-born man. In medieval times, this name referred to someone who wasn't a serf and enjoyed particular liberties, a status that held significant importance in the social hierarchy of the time. The earliest known bearer of this name was William Freeman, recorded in Norfolk, England in 1196, marking the beginning of a long and rich history for this surname. Today, Freeman is a fairly common surname, ranking around 140 to 150th in popularity in the United States. According to the 2010 census, approximately 169,000 people bear this surname in the U.S. The geographic distribution of Freemans in the U.S. shows a concentration in southern states like Georgia, Texas, North Carolina, Florida, and Alabama, reflecting historical migration trends and the surname's adoption across communities over time. The ethnic breakdown of people with the Freeman surname provides insight into America's complex racial history. About 65% of Freemans in the U.S. identify as white, while 28% identify as Black or African American.
There are those of us who like to venture to the unexplored, to see the beauty in the strange.
Interestingly, the percentage of African Americans with the Freeman surname increased slightly from 2000 to 2010, hinting at ongoing demographic shifts. For many African Americans, the Freeman surname carries a particularly poignant meaning, as some adopted it as a surname after being freed from slavery, making it a powerful symbol of liberation and newfound identity. This historical choice contributes to the significant proportion of African Americans among Freeman surname bearers today. The Freeman name has also left its mark across various fields, with notable bearers including acclaimed actor Morgan Freeman, Olympic athlete Kathy Freeman, and renowned economist Milton Friedman. These individuals, among others, have helped make Freeman a recognizable name across different spheres of public life. If you found value in this video, hit the subscribe button and please share with a friend on Facebook, WhatsApp, or X. Catch you on the next video.